Hello, America. It's Wednesday. It's 2 p.m. And once again, it's time for the Lid Radio Show. We have a really special guest today. I'm so excited. Brigitte Gabriel, who's not only a terrorism expert and the chairman and founder of Act for America, which you haven't heard of, is the largest national security grassroots organization in the country. But she's the author of this great new book called Rise. Brigitte lectures both nationally and internationally about terrorism and current affairs, and her knowledge is sought out by world leaders and business leaders, and she's a regular guest on TV news. She's addressed the United Nations, members of the Congress, the Pentagon, the Joint Forces Staff College, the FBI, and so many other. Or to put it another way, when it comes to teaching about terror, uh, and fight and teaching people how to fight terrorism, which is most important, Brigitte Gabriel is a superstar. And before I get into the interview, as soon as the show is over, and it's in the show post, it'll be in the podcast post later. I strongly recommend you go to risetoact.com, risetoact.com, and get a copy of this book. Not only did I enjoy it, it, it's laid out so differently because it not only talks about the dangers we're facing this great country of ours, but it teaches you how to spot it and has at the end of each chapter is a page or two of easy to follow acts you can do to fight the dangers, which which is wonderful because it's not just okay, here I am, here's what's going on. It really motivates you to act. Brigitte, thank you so much for coming on the show. Um,
I'm delighted to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Before we get into the book, I'd love for you to share with the listeners a bit about how your childhood kind of led you into this career of fighting and teaching about terrorism.
Well, my 9/11 happened to me in 1975 when radical Islamists blew up my home, bringing it down, burying me under the rubble, wounded as they shouted, Allahu Akbar. I ended up in a hospital for 2.5 months. And as I laid in a hospital bed, going from one surgery to another, hooked up to IVs, I would ask my father, why did they do this to us? And my father would tell me, because we are Christians, the Muslims consider us infidels and they want to kill us. So I learned since I was a 10-year-old little girl that I am wanted dead simply because I was born into the Christian faith and lived in a Christian town. I ended up leaving the hospital and coming back home, but my home was no longer the home I left. I ended up living underground in an 8 by 10 bomb shelter without electricity, without water, and very little food. And that's where I lived for the next 7 years of my life, from the age of 10 till the age of 17, robbed of my youth.
I read the part where you talk about how when you were in Lebanon that you had a tank used to take you to school.
Correct. People ask me, how did you get your education? Well, when we were living in the war, the elders in our family and our town decided, after 2 years of us not going to school, they decided we've got to open up the school and we've got to educate the kids because we don't know how long we're going to live like this. So our school was like basically bunkers, the first floor of the school building, and we all huddled in these rooms. And I used to be picked up with a tank, those tanks with the cannon in the front that you watch on TV, during war scenes. You can put 16 children in these tanks. And a lot of days, that's how I was driven back from school or to school.
That's really incredible, and it's really people have to think about that because I just sent my son off. He goes to college and he commutes, and he was saying, "Oh, I got to go to school." And I said, "You know what? There are a lot of people who want to go to school and can't." And and reading about that just made me appreciate that so much. I have to tell you though, it scared the heck out of me when you started talking about airport security and the TSA.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is such theater. In my book I have a chapter about the cost of terror because a lot of people don't realize. I mean, we hear about the deficit and we hear about our debt and we hear about how much money we are in debt, trillions and trillions of dollars, but people don't realize how much the war on terror has cost the American public, especially every single American. Look, by the end of 2018, we would have spent $5.6 trillion on the war on terror. Now, for people who say, this doesn't affect me, I break it down in the chapter. It affected every single person, you, me, and everybody listening to us. It cost every single one of us since 2001 almost $24,000 towards this war on terror. $24,000. Now, if you are married and have two children, for a family of four, that's almost $100,000.
But
$100,000.
you're not saying don't fight the war on terror. You're saying fight it right, right?
Fight it right. Fight
Exactly.
it where actually we know what we are doing. And this is why I give the example about the TSA, which what I was leading to. The TSA, of all the agencies that were developed as a part of the Department of Homeland Security, most Americans will never have to deal with anything except for the TSA, because we have to travel, we have to take vacations, we have to visit family, we have to go for work. Look, I'm talking to you from New York. I flew here on a business trip. We all have to deal with the TSA. What's scary about the TSA, we have spent over $2 billion on the TSA, and especially on these machines, these scanners that are in airports. If you've flown on a plane, you have to walk through security, you have to stand to go through these machines, put your hands up over your head to supposedly detect explosives. Well, these machines can detect anything and everything except explosives. The TSA has a failure rate of 95%. 95%. You can actually put a gun on the side of your leg and walk through one of these machines and go on your airplane, and the machine will not detect the gun. A blogger posted a video of himself walking through one of these machines with a gun taped to the side of his leg. He not only was able to go through the machines, but actually get on the plane with the gun. He posted the video on YouTube. The video was watched by over 2 million people. The TSA was so embarrassed, they gave orders to their employees that they should pat down every fifth passenger to show the American public that there are other ways to detect explosives other than these machines. That's how ridiculous the TSA is and our national security at the airports.
It's amazing. And then you outline really the difference between the TSA and how Israel does it, where here we look for the weapon, and in Israel airport security they look for the terrorist.
That's right. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head. In Israel,
I just
there.
read a good book about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, look at it this way. In Israel, security officers at airports are all college graduates, and for a reason, because you have to actually be able to exercise your brain when you're looking at people and their behavior, and use the education that you studied in order to basically gain knowledge on how to better be able to react to people. For example, in Israel, they train people on spotting behavior and based on behavior and mannerism. They profile based on behavior and mannerism, not how you look like, etc. And here's why: because when you are lying, when you are going and up to no good at an airport, if you're carrying a bomb or about to carry a terrorist attack, when they ask you questions, usually people who are trying to lie, they smile, they are extra friendly. And when you smile, if you're lying, your eye muscles don't move. Now, you have to train your agent on these type of behaviors. So you'll be able to detect even white blonde with blue eyes who may be up to no good carrying explosives. Our TSA agents in America, do you know that a canine dog has literally more hours training than a TSA employee? I mean, it's a joke. Yet TSA employees walk around with badges, official badges, like police officer badges. So you think they're officials, you think they are trained, and they have no training whatsoever. It is a joke.
I'm reminded of the last time I went to Israel, where I took the whole family, and what the Israeli because at El Al they only use Israelis for people who are going on flights to Israel. And the guy took my son aside and started asking him questions, but he didn't look at my son at all. He was looking at my wife and me to see how we were reacting to his answers. I mean, it was incredible. And it's exactly what you're saying is that they're looking for the reactions and all kind of stuff. Um,
Exactly, exactly. They're looking for the reactions, and that's why they ask you questions.
yep.
Where are you going? Or how long are you staying? Who are you seeing? Is this vacation? Oh, are you celebrating a birthday? Tell me your mom's name. How old is she? What does she like? They ask you all these nothing, basically nothing questions because they want to see if you are consistent with the
Right.
answers or if you're lying or if you forget something. Sometimes they ask you the question multiple times. If your answers vary a lot, they know you're lying. They know you're trying
Right.
to make stuff up as you go along. This is the type of security we need. But this is exactly why in the book I discuss so many topics. And as you mentioned in the book, that what makes this book so unique and different is I not only educate the public, but at the end of every chapter, I have a section titled Rise Up and Act,
Right.
where I give people ideas and tips and things they can do to make a difference for the country. Simple tips like sometimes 3 things you can do under 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this book so unique.
Exactly. And the tips, guys, aren't stuff like you have to go to school to do. I mean, this is like call your congressman and say this, or ask your congressman this. I mean, it's stuff you could do like that, and
Exactly.
and and that's one of the wonderful things about the book because it doesn't just tell you what's going on; it shows you how to identify it and how to fight it. One of my
Exactly.
one of my
Exactly.
favorite parts, and I'm gonna actually play this video after our interview, is when you were doing you with the panel and the person came and the Muslim girl came and said, "But wait a second, aren't there good? Not all Muslims are terrorists."
That's right. And I answered her. We were actually on the Benghazi accountability panel.
Right.
I serve on the board of the Benghazi accountability at the time. And we were having this, discussion about Benghazi at the Heritage Foundation. And this Muslim lady, she stood out in the crowd. I mean, we knew she was there to cause trouble. She waits to ask the question. She chases the person with the microphone around the room and asks the question that about, well, what about all the majority moderate Muslims, here we were not talking about Muslims. We were not talking about any of that stuff. And I said, well, I'm glad you asked the question because it gives us an opportunity to answer why we are concerned about radical Islam. And I said, the moderate majority are truly irrelevant because it is the radical minority who is driving the agenda. And I said, when you look at all the lessons in history, when you look at Germany, for example, most Germans were peaceful, but the Nazis drove the agenda, and as a result, 60 million people worldwide died, 14 million in concentration camps, 6 million were Jews. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at China, for example, most Chinese were peaceful, yet China was able to kill 70 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. When you look at Russia, most Russians were peaceful, yet Russians were able to kill 20 million people. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. Take Japan, for example. Most Japanese were peaceful, yet Japan was able to kill 12 million people in Southeast Asia, mostly killed by bayonets and shovels. The peaceful majority were irrelevant. So you look at the United States or 9/11. Here we are this week celebrating the memory of 9/11, 17 years. On 9/11, 2001, we had 2.3 million Arab Muslims living in the United States. On that day, it took only 19 hijackers, 19 radicals to bring America down to its knees, destroy the World Trade Center, attack the Pentagon, and kill almost 3,000 Americans on that day. The peaceful majority are irrelevant. And this is why I wrote my book, Rise, to light a fire under the dedicated minority. I always say, 2% of the passionate will always rule the 98% indifferent.
Yep.
What I'm trying to do with the book is light a fire under those who love America, the flag waving, the national anthem saluting, the veteran respecting, the police officer honoring, the founding father cherishing, the patriotic Americans who believe America is exceptional, to come together, network together, and work together and know exactly what to do and how we can be organized to take our country back. Because the left is organized. The left knows exactly how to organize, how to boycott, how to put pressure on their elected officials. We need to be able to do the same thing on our side.
And what they also know how to do is they know how to use political correctness to shut us up.
Exactly, exactly. And this is why I speak about why we need to speak up, why we need to be vocal. Look, the New York Times wrote an article about me on their Sunday magazine, their full page article in their Sunday magazine in 2008 when my second book came out. And they couldn't find one bad quote to quote me. So they titled the article Radical Islamophobe. I'm not just an Islamophobe, I am a radical Islamophobe. But since that article came out, my organization and we have been able to pass 100 bills on the federal level as well as the state level to secure America. Can you imagine if I would have stopped my activism and crawled under the table because the lefty radical America hating New York Times called me an Islamophobe? Do you see? The left cannot argue with our facts. So the only thing they can do, because they cannot argue with your fact, is call you names. So let them call you names. So once they call you Islamophobe, what can they do after that? Once they call you racist, bigot, Islamophobe, homophobe, xenophobe, whatever alphabet soup phobes, they can
Media
come.
Matters. Media Matters called
Exactly.
me an anti-Semite.
Oh my gosh, they're idiots.
Well, of
You know.
course, but that's By the way, I have a letter being written that I'm halfway written to Peter Beinhardt to give him a lesson on Purim.
Oh, good for you.
But what he doesn't realize, there's a whole part, folks, about how he tried to say that other religions are violent or had violent periods, and he talks about Purim, which really isn't a violent holiday, but
Exactly.
everywhere in the Torah where it talks about zealots, it talks about them in a bad way. Like, for example, um, Aaron's two sons go into the tabernacle of God, and without permission, they zealously do an offering, and God kills them. There's a section where Phineas, who was a priest, killed two people who a Jew and a Mennonite woman who were making love in front of everybody after they were told not to. And the next section, it's interesting, the Torah, the word shalom, which means peace, the the lamed, the L part is cut in half because the joy of peace is taken away by zealotry. So he doesn't know what he's talking about. Plus,
Wow.
how can you knock a holiday where you're supposed to get drunk? I mean, come on.
Well, we have a lot of educating to do. I mean, people need to be informed, but also people need to be active. And a lot of people tell me, but Brigitte, you need to speak, you're speaking to the choir. You need to speak to the left. You need to go on MSNBC and talk to MSNBC. And I tell them, it does forget the left. It is the choir whom you need to mobilize. It is the
Yep.
choir who show up when you need the church cleaned up or when you need the temple cleaned up. It is the choir who shows up when you are sick and you need somebody to help you. It's the choir who shows up to do activism. It's those people you can count on. If we can just turn out the base, the people who care about this country, who are fired up about this country, who love this country, if we can just light a fire and get our patriotic Americans engaged, it doesn't matter what the left does.
That's
We
right.
will be able to respect this country because I know there is more of us than there is of them. Except they squeak all the time. They shout and scream. That's why they say squeaky wheel gets the oil. That's why the left gets all the attention. And people think, I mean, if you watch CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, NBC, all these leftist lamestream media, you would think America is terrible. We are a horrible society. We are white supremacists. We are anti-Semite. We are this, that, and the other. But they are the vocal minority. We need to speak up because there is more of us in this country. And the election of President Trump has proved that there are more of us in this country, that when we come out and we speak with one voice, there will be no telling how much we can get accomplished.
You talked about the radical Islamists using the internet, and when you talk about the lionesses of Allah, who folks are
Oh, yeah.
are, are women who are recruited just to sleep with terrorists so they can make more terrorists. And
Exactly.
and I thought about it, and what struck me is that these women are, this is going to sound horrible, are worse than animals, because animals protect their young. They send their young out to die.
Yeah, exactly. And the scary thing is that these people now, since now we eradicated ISIS's territory, we broke it apart, the geographical, physical territory, all these women now are coming back to the West with their children. Remember, there are people now coming back to Australia, to Europe, to the United States. Their children are desensitized to killing. They have been trained to kill. And this is the danger now that we are facing. So while we're not going to see an attack on the scale of 9/11, we are going to see attacks by lone wolves, radical Islamists who are just want to harm our society. And this is why we have to keep our eyes open.
Exactly right. Because the term lone wolf is such a horrible term, because it's not. They might be doing the act by themselves, but they're learning from a whole group.
Yes, they are being trained on the internet. You can go on the internet, you can find a lot of videos about how to do bombs. They have people that fund them, they have people that support them. And the sad thing is, if they are living on welfare, they are supported by the American taxpayer while they are sitting collecting welfare, going out and buying bombs and putting it together, or training children to shoot up schools.
Another thing you talk about in the book, which is another favorite topic of mine, is illegal immigration. Or, I hate they hate to be called illegal immigrants, so I call them um, uh, illegally trespassing aliens.
Well,
That might make them happier, but it's the
they
same
are
thing,
criminal aliens
right?
who broke the law to get into our countries, pure and simple. And what I discuss in the book is how we are, I have a chapter titled Replacement Civilization,
Right.
how we are changing our society by all these, not only illegal immigrants who are coming here, but the refugees that we are importing, the immigrants we are bringing from third world countries. Our society is changing. To give you an idea, and this is something I go into detail in the book, the city of Denver, for example, in May 2017, passed an ordinance that allowed defecation on the street. And the reason, I know people are shocked to hear this, like, what? And the reality is yes. And the reason why they allowed defecation on the street is because we have a lot of people, illegal immigrants, who are in the city of Denver, and defecation on the street is a deportable crime. So if the police arrests you or catch you, doing the act, they can deport you. So the leftist liberal city of Denver decided, well, you know what? We do not want to lose our illegal immigrants because they are, great democratic voters, and we do not want them deported. So they legalized defecation on the street. The city of Denver has a bigger problem with illegal immigration than San Francisco and Philadelphia. We know that's already a problem in San Francisco. We already know that right now in San Francisco, there are trucks that drive around and fumigate the streets because of the diseases that are spreading right now because of waste on the street.
I
Is this
actually, do you
what
know
we
that
want?
they just passed an ordinance by the airport that, and I don't know why they needed to pass it, that it's illegal for the taxi cab drivers to do their business in the taxi cab parking lot. It's like, who would
Wow.
think of that? I mean, who would think
Wow.
about to do that?
Wow, but they are doing it, and that's what the American public needs to understand. Why we must control our immigration, we must control our visa system, end chain migration, build a wall on the border. We have got to take care of our country, otherwise we're going to lose our country. One thing I discuss in my book, which I'm sure you read, is
Yep.
when I quote the Pew Research. Since we changed our immigration laws in 1965, where we allowed basically citizens to bring in their families from abroad, and that's what started chain migration. We have taken in 72 million people between 1965 and 2015. Now think about that. We are a nation of 300 million. 72 million in the last few decades have come because of chain migration and people that we brought in. According to Pew Research, if this trend continues, by 2065, 88% of the US population growth is going to be by immigrants and their descendants. We are basically being transformed into a third world country by the people we are bringing into our country. And by 2065, the nation that you and I live in today will be unrecognizable. This is a fact. And this is something that Americans who care about this country must understand, must become engaged. I appeal to everybody to get my book, Rise, read it, Rise in defense of Judeo-Christian values and freedom. Rise in defense of our American values. Get the book and read it for yourself. And I challenge you to get books and put it in your library. If you have 5 libraries in your community, if you have 10 libraries in your city, buy a book and donate it to every library in your community. That's how we can educate the masses. That's how every person can play their part in making a difference for the country.
And there's actually one other way, because it's not only the immigrants that are doing this, but it's the politicians who are letting the immigrants in. And
Exactly.
we have a in 8 weeks we have a an important midterm election, folks. And if you want us to slip even faster, to lose the progress we've made since President Trump was elected, then the only way to prevent that is to vote to keep a Republican majority in both the House and the Senate. Otherwise, we're going to go back to the bad old days of Obama. And as
Exactly.
and as far as the book goes, I have to tell you that my copy of it, I have a couple of books that are right next to my chair in the office. My office is a mess, but I have a couple where that I want to keep with me that I can refer to all the time and things like that. And Rise is now on the top of that pile, because this is something that I want to go back to and read again. And folks, you have to go buy this book, because it teaches you what to do. Okay, it tells you what to be worried about and then teaches you what to do. So you got to go to rise2act.com and purchase the book. And when
Yeah.
you're
And the book is available on Amazon,
right,
Walmart. You can go to Walmart, Sam's Club, Barnes and Nobles, everywhere where all books are sold. The book came out on September 11th yesterday, so the book is available nationwide as well as on Amazon.com. And please, when you purchase the book, make sure you leave a review on Amazon to encourage more people to get the book. We know that the left is going to give it, they're going to call it all sorts of names, put it down. But we want to make sure that we get the message out to as many people as possible.
and when you're all done purchasing the book, then go to actforamerica.org and check out their website, because they will keep you in it will keep you informed. And the very least, sign up to be on their mailing list to help you stay informed, because things change. Um, Brigitte, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
And
Pleasure being with you.
thank you so much for writing this book. And by the way, we both have a problem with Linda Sarsour, who is a friend of my governor and my senator, but besides that, hates Jews and hates America. Other than
Yep,
that, she's a nice person.
exactly. Well, it's a pleasure being with you. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.